In this session, we will discuss the design issues in thread packages. So what do you understand by a thread package? It is nothing but a set of primitive, just like your library calls, which are available to the user in relation to the thread is called as a thread package. Now this thread package or thread can be classified as a static thread or a dynamic thread. So first we will talk about a static thread. Now the choice of how many threads will be there is made when the program is written or when it is compiled. Each thread is allocated a fixed stack. This approach is simple, but it is inflexible. Whereas with respect to dynamic threads, allowing threads to be created and destroyed on the fly during execution. The thread creation usually specifies the thread's main program and a stack size, and may specify some other parameters as well. Now the question is, how can you terminate a thread? So thread can be basically terminated in two ways. The first one, the thread itself will exit voluntarily when it finishes its job. And the second option is, you kill the thread from outside. So in these two ways, a thread can be terminated. Now, since threads share a common memory, they can, and they usually do, use it for holding data that are shared among multiple threads. Access to shared data is usually programmed using critical regions to prevent multiple threads from trying to access the same data at the same time. Critical regions are most easily implemented using either semaphores, monitors, or some similar constructions. One of the techniques that is commonly used in thread packages is the mutex. So mutex is always in one of the two states. Either the mutex can be unlocked or it can be locked. So basically two operations are defined on the mutex. The first operation is the lock operation. Now this operation attempts to lock the mutex. But if the mutex is unlocked, then the lock will succeed and the mutex becomes locked in a single atomic action. Now if two threads are trying to lock the same mutex exactly at the same instant, so this type of event are possible only on multiprocessors on which different threads run on different CPUs. So in such cases, one of them will win and the other will lose. More about mutexes. A thread which is attempting to lock a mutex that is already locked. Now in such a case, that particular thread will be blocked. The next operation is the unlock operation. Now this unlock operation usually unlocks a mutex. So if one or more threads are waiting on the mutex, exactly one of them is released and the rest will continue to wait. Another operation that is sometimes provided is nothing but the try lock, which will attempt to lock a mutex. So if the mutex is unlocked, then this try lock will return a status code indicating success. However, if the mutex is locked, then the try lock does not block the thread, but instead it will return a status which indicates failure. Now about condition variable. Now this condition variable is nothing but it is a synchronization feature that is available in thread packages and are called as condition variables. So each condition variable is normally associated with a mutex at the time it is created. So basically we require to understand the difference between a mutex and a condition variable. So mutexes are used for short-term locking and mostly for guarding the entry to critical region. So this is why a mutex is used. Whereas about the condition variable, it is used for long-term waiting until a resource becomes available. So this is the difference between a mutex and a condition variable. Now the question is how these condition variables can be used. A thread locks a mutex to gain entry to a critical region. Once it is inside the critical region, it will examine the system tables, and in case it discovers that some of the resources it needs is busy, then so if it simply locks a second mutex which is associated with the resource, then the outer mutex will remain locked and the thread holding the resource will not be able to enter the critical region to free it. So in this case, a deadlock will result. Unlocking the outer mutex lets the other threads into the critical region, which will obviously create chaos. So this solution is not at all acceptable. So what we can do? So the first solution for this is we make use of condition variables to acquire the resource as shown in this particular figure. Here waiting on the condition variable is defined to perform the wait and unlock the mutex atomically. In the second figure, when the thread holding the resource frees it, it calls the wake up which is defined to wake up either exactly one thread or all the threads waiting on the special condition variable. So this is the solution that can be used. Now, why to wake up all the threads? Now this can be discussed with respect to the reader-writer problem. So when a writer finishes, it may choose to wake up pending writers or the pending readers. In case if it chooses readers, it should wake up all of them and not just one, because it just will be a read operation. So providing primitives for waking up exactly one thread and for waking up all the threads provides the needed flexibility. Now looking at the contents of the thread code. The code of a thread normally consists of multiple procedures, just like we have in a process. Now this will be a local variable, global variable, procedure parameters. So usually the code of a thread consists of multiple procedures, just like a process. This may have local variables, global variables, and procedure parameters. Local variables and parameters do not cause any trouble, but variables that are global to a thread but not global to the entire program do cause trouble. As an example, consider the error number variable that is maintained by the Unix system. When a process or a thread makes a system call that fails, the error code is put into the error number. In this figure, thread 1 executes the system call access to find out if it has permission to access a certain file. The operating system returns the answer in the global variable error number. After the control has written to thread 1, but before it has a chance to read error number, the scheduler decides that thread 1 has enough CPU time for the moment and decides to switch to thread 2. So now here the thread 2 executes an open call that fails, which causes error number to be overwritten and the threads, that is thread 1's access code, to be lost forever. When thread 1 starts up later, it will be reading the wrong value and behave incorrectly. So this is the problem that is caused by a variable global to the thread. So now the possible solution to this problem is either you totally prohibit global variables altogether. So that is one option. And the second option is to assign each thread its own private global variables. We can see what is the solution as we move ahead. You can see over here in this figure with respect to solution 2, thread 1, this is thread 1's code, it is having its own stack and own global variables. So in this case, each thread has its own private copy of error number and the other global variables. So in such a case, any type of conflicts will be avoided. Now accessing the private global variables, it is a bit tricky. However, since most programming languages have a way of expressing local variables and global variables, but not the intermediate forms, it is possible to allocate a chunk of memory for the globals and then pass it to each procedure in the thread as an extra parameter. Now this type of solution will work. So alternatively, new library procedures can be introduced to create, set and read these thread-wide global variables. So the first call might look something like this. That is create global buffer pointer. Now in this case what it does is it allocates a storage for a pointer called buffer pointer on the heap or in a special storage that is specially reserved for the calling thread. No matter where the storage is allocated, only the calling thread has an access to the global variable. So if another thread creates a global variable with the same name, then it gets a different storage location that does not conflict with the existing one. For writing purpose, so basically for writing and reading, we require two calls to access the global variables. So for writing, we have this particular function that is set global. So what happens over here is it stores the value of a pointer in the storage location that is previously created by the call to create global. Whereas for reading, the call will look something like this. So what this call will do is it will return the address that is stored in the global variable so that the data value can be accessed.